Welcome to a new edition of the Neon Jazz Interview Series with jazz composer, bandleader, and bassist Artie Roth on the 2023 CD called Resonants. On this third release by the Artie Roth Quartet, it features 10 new compositions with his group formed back in 2013. It is a trailblazing 21st century jazz concept album full of grit and drive. We cover the COVID survival time, this new album, the future, and beyond. Enjoy this interview. At any rate, it's great to catch back up with you. Thank you for taking a minute out to talk about the brand new album. It's great that, we caught up several years back, but you have your quartet and Resonance is the new album. And I'm curious, before we get into it, the world's waking up, musicians are back at it. How does it feel in general? Kind of looking back in the rearview mirror, how did you survive that COVID period, and how does this album feel now?
Okay, so how did I survive the COVID period? Basically, I did a whole bunch of things that I never would have been able to have done had I had my freelance career, at its current level of activity pre-pandemic. Like, I never would have accomplished this album. I never would have been able to because the album is fairly conceptual. I don't think I would have had the headspace to actually conceptualize the album in the way that I did. And the other thing that we have up here in Canada, I know you guys have the, I guess it's the NEA, the National Endowment for the Arts, et cetera, et cetera. We have a lot of arts funding granting agencies up here, and you have to basically do a whole bunch of paperwork and make proposals. And the reason you do that is it's an opportunity for you to raise some funds to record your album. So I learned about how to be an arts administrator, believe it or not, in all that, because there are no gigs and nobody was playing and nobody was really going out. So I'm just like, well, what am I going to do? It's like, that's what I learned how to do. And so it's been a really incredible journey insofar as I learned about things that I never would have learned about. And leading up to the album, I think a lot of the songs are sort of topical in terms of, a lot of emotions and experiences that people were going through. For example, the song Sky Blues, I wrote that looking out the window, staring at the sky during a lockdown up here. So there's so many songs in the album that they're so of the time of the pandemic.
So is this kind of a breakout album for you to kind of come into your own and get out of the band mold?
I wouldn't say that necessarily. It's part of an evolution. I think in terms of breaking out of my mold, I think one veritable difference with this is that on half the album I'm playing electric bass. So this is the first time with my own quartet that I've kind of divided. There are 11 compositions on the album, and I think on about 5 of them I'm playing electric, and 5 of them I'm on my old buddy, the acoustic bass. So that's been a departure. I think the other thing with the album conceptually that was going on was that we were recording various types of objects and musical instruments in the room that were resonating while we actually played the music. And what I did was with my co-producer Roman Clune, we recorded other objects resonating in the studio, and I harvested those sounds. And I kind of created sound sculptures with them in post-production, which is I think that's a fairly unusual trajectory for a jazz album. And it certainly was a new direction for me as a composer to take sounds and just sort of construct a landscape or a texture out of them.
I think the other part of, coming out of this and the world that we're in now, obviously with the new album, there's going to be live performances. What has the live crowd felt like, and how much are you looking forward to presenting this album live?
I'm looking very forward to presenting this album live. Due to a lot of medical issues in my kind of immediate circle, I have not been active performing very much over the pandemic. There have been a handful of gigs. I think what I'm looking forward to the most in terms of performing this album is recreating the textures that we created in the studio. And by saying that, I mean, various instruments had effects on them. There were sort of transitional pieces, which will probably become part of some kind of like free improvised sort of segue between songs. So I'm particularly looking forward to how we deal with that in terms of a live performance context. In terms of how does it feel to perform right now, I don't know what it's like down in Kansas. Occasionally, there's a sort of certain people just sort of trudged through the pandemic and didn't sort of with a damn the torpedoes kind of attitude. Uh, I wasn't like that. I was more cautious. So I think internally I'm feeling a lot of things, but the world seems fairly, strangely enough, the same. Like whenever I'm out there, like it feels like wow, something happened, but it's kind of like just like I was sleeping or in some sort of state of suspension for 3 years.
It is a weird feeling for sure. I agree. So ultimately with this album, what are you hoping the listener gets from this?
Originally, when I went into this, we all have like in our mind, in the jazz world, we have concept albums. I mean, the big one that always comes to mind for me is John Coltrane's The Love Supreme, was sort of a unifying concept. My big aim with this, and it's pretty ambitious, is to see if people could listen to the album all the way through. That's huge. And I'm not suggesting that many people will do that. We're, as jazz fans, listeners, musicians, we're kind of in that sort of shuffle generation now, right? Where you're given playlists from either Spotify or whatever platform you use. And you never, that sort of experience of listening to a whole album front to back is a pretty rare one. But I'm actually aspiring and hoping that people will do that. The songs stand on their own for the most part. So, I mean, they can accommodate the sort of shuffle generation, but that's my big goal for the album. To ask somebody to pour themselves a glass of wine or a beer or a coffee or a tea or whatever it is you drink and just chill out for an hour and stop and listen.
Yeah, I like it. That's a great approach. So Artie, if anyone wants to pick up the album, learn more about live shows, anything pertaining to this project or even previous projects, where's the best place to go?
The best place to go at this point, this is my first album on a label, so I'm no longer technically an independent. So the label I'm with is TPR Records, which is sort of a Canadian / Brooklyn, New York label. I'm on that, so you could go to the TPR site. I'm also on Bandcamp. I have a website, and I love hearing from you. That's www.artieroth.com. I'm on all the kind of social media networks. The ones I use the most are Facebook and Instagram, but I'm reachable on LinkedIn and Twitter. So there are a number of ways to get in touch with me. And in terms of the album as well, although I hesitate to say this as an artist, making a living, it is of course available for streaming. So on all the typical platforms that you would be able to access music, I'm available there. And if you go on Facebook, you'll see all those sites listed and it links, active links to them. So that's definitely thing. A friend of mine always says, if you want us artists to make money, buy the CD or buy whatever the product or the merch or whatever you've got. The streaming, as we all know, is not exactly a sustainable model in terms of making a living.
Which is exactly why I like to find out the best place and what the optimum place is to do it. So thank you for doing that. Artie, thank you for opening up. Thanks for the music. Best of luck with everything. It was great to catch back up with you.
Thank you. You too. And just before we wrap up, I'd like to acknowledge the people I was talking about, Arts Administration, Factor, which is the foundation to assist Canadian talent on records, helped me financially with the album, as did the Canada Council for Fine Arts. And my big surprise is that I will be releasing this album on vinyl in about 3 months. So it'll be like a re-release in the fall.
That's wonderful. Artie, thank you again, man. Hey, best of luck. It's great to catch up with you. I appreciate it, man.
Thank you so much, Joe. Thanks for your interest. And
thanks for listening and tuning in to another Neon Jazz interview. We give you a bit of insight into the finest cats in Toronto, Kansas City, and spots all over the world, giving fans all that jazz. If you want to hear more Neon Jazz interviews, you can find us at Spotify or Apple Podcasts. Subscribe to us at YouTube, and for everything Neon Jazz, go to the neonjazz.blogspot.com. Until next time, enjoy the jazz, my friends.
Neon Jazz.